podcast. We're about to come to you live with a beautiful episode of Training Camp with a special guest. We'll introduce him right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Welcome back. So our special guest, if y'all don't know who it is, y'all better go follow him on everything. I'm pretty sure you already do. He's a very well-known person, Raj from our SF 49ers. Welcome, Raj. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me here. This is fun time. Training camp, football is in there. We got a week away, less than a week from it up.
Hey, this is going to be a fire episode. All three of us were at training camp today. Me and Raj have been going consistently, been linking up the last couple of days. So, all three of us, we all have our own information. And that's really what makes training camp fun, because you have three different guys with a variety of information, which makes it three different perspectives. So all three of us might see a certain play a different way. And now all of you guys get to hear the different ways that we see practice. So Raj, as always, thank you for coming on. Had a great time, obviously, chopping it up with you for the last couple of days, and ready for this episode.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's been great hanging out with you, catching up with you and Marco, and fun. And like you said, we all have different views on how it's going. Even when we're watching, we all see things differently. So thanks for having me on.
So like this comment says, right? All context matters, and that's the main thing, and that's going to be the most important part about today's episode. So I know everyone's going to look at the numbers, right, Raj? So I want to get it from your perspective, right? People are going to throw out those numbers: 4 for 12, an interception on the day, and potentially could have been 2 interceptions, but Charvarius Ward just dropped an interception. What does that mean to you when people start throwing 4 for 12 out there without anything to it? Like, what did you see from today's practice? Not only from Trey Lance, but from the offense in general. Like, what did you see?
Yeah, that's a good question. Context is the biggest thing, because everybody see those numbers, and most people are going to say, oh, Trey, there was a couple drops, right? And there has been consistent drops throughout training camp. There was a drop by Brandon Ayuk today, crazy. Ray Mccloud had a drop. So I feel like some of that, and again, it's training camp. I always feel weird that people are catching stats on training now with social media. Is they love to keep these stats on just in case. This is where these players are going to get better. But honestly, the interception's interception. The other takeaway is this O-line, they didn't have their starters. No Trent Williams, no Mike McGlinchey. So you have to take these stats with a grain of salt. And it's the 10th day of practice. I'm telling you, he was tired. So I can only imagine these guys. And again, you're going up against probably one of the top NFL, maybe the best, the way that they're looking. So you kind of have to take those interceptions. Of course, there's been some bad plays. The Fred Warner pick was just bad. I mean, some of these, incompletions were drop passes where Trey just threw it right to him. And then issues that he still has to iron out. Deep passes to Kittle. Those two guys kind of not on the same page. Him and Debo still working on that chemistry. I know they've stayed late to kind of work on it when they have the time. Debo, their connection was a little bit better. And I think I've noticed that over the last few days that the chemistry, I think he just needs to kind of build his chemistry more with, of course, Kittle. But him and Ayuk, when he gets to pass to Brandon Ayuk, it's surprising if he doesn't connect with them, right? And there was a drop pass from Ayuk, and it was a surprise to me. But overall, like you guys said, line again, they were missing Mike McGlinchey, missing Trent Williams. You had Cole Skewell. Those guys aren't going to be beating everybody on the line like Trent and McGlinchey. And even I feel like they weren't getting off consistent runs where the last few days I feel and Mitchell. So overall, again, I feel like it wasn't a horrible day from Lance. He needed a day off. I think he'll come back Tuesday in a better form. And one last, I feel yesterday's practice was such a good way to end, with that 2-minute installment drill, 5 out of 6, touchdown to Ray to end it. That's the kind of stuff that I feel was, and these days where he, had a rough day today, you look at this, have to consider all the great moments. I feel like there's been more good than bad overall.
No, yeah, I would absolutely agree with you on there's been more good than bad. So, like, one thing I took from today, right? So, on the interception, in my notes, I have it would have been sacked in the game, right? Charles Omenihu was already there. He ran right by him, pretty much touched him down, but he continued the play and he did throw it. Like, he did obviously he did throw the ball. It was intercepted, but when I look at that kind of play, it's like, okay, well, in a game, that's a sack. He's not able to actually make that throw. So a lot of people are going to like, oh, well, but he threw it. Yeah, he did throw it, so we're going to count it. We're going to consider that an interception. But realistically, if the 49ers were actually having a legit live scrimmage, Trey Lance would have been sacked. That interception doesn't happen. And then on another play where Charvarius Ward gets his hands on it, it was the play that right away I was like, okay, this either should have been a pass interference or a flag on the play. Tyler Kroft and the DB and Charvarius Ward, like, they all ran into each other with Ayuk. So, like, Ayuk's running it for context out there. It was a 3rd down and 3. Brandon Ayuk is running a 3-yard slant to get the first down. He gets bumped by the nickel, the linebacker covering Tyler Kroft. Tyler Kroft and Brandon Ayuk end up hitting each other, colliding. Brandon Ayuk spins in the air to try to get back onto his route pattern. The ball goes straight to Charvarius Ward. So in that situation, at the same time, if we look at the line of scrimmage, Aaron Banks, Daniel Brunskill with the interior right there got whooped, absolutely whooped by Javon Kinlaw. So when you have a 6'6" dude running down your face, while your other receiver, the main receiver you're trying to throw to, got knocked off his route by a backup tight end because George Kittle wasn't there, right? That's something that needs to be thrown out there as well. Tyler Kroft's not running this route on 3rd down and 3 in a situation in a game. So for stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, I see why Trey Lance was starting to struggle after he went 3 for 3 because that defense just was annihilating this offense. Like, literally, I was like, whoa, this defensive line, this defensive unit with the linebackers and corners is outrageous. Like, nothing to say, but I want to keep going into a little bit more detailed on after Rohan talked about what he saw about just the entire team and what we see from the team and the expectations.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys hammered it well with the point about context with some of the Trey Lance throws. I want to highlight something else that I don't think has gotten enough attention. That's Kyle Shanahan and Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel is consistently not won on deeper routes in training camp so far, be it off rust, be it him trying to regain that end of his acceleration back as he comes back into football shape. And whatever it may be, Samuel has shown his explosiveness on certain plays in the 11-on-11 session. But Kyle Shanahan has done something really nice over the last 2 days where he's gotten ways to get Debo Samuel back in his comfort zone. And that's these deep crossing routes. Debo Samuel, last year, his 35-yard touchdown from Trey Lance was on a deep crossing route. And why are these important? Well, first of all, Shanahan understands that it's soft coverage normally from the cornerback, allowing Debo Samuel to get in open space when he's coming off, when he's going into the crosser, and then when he's in open space, he's able to accelerate, and Lance can hit him on that throw. Today, there was a 25-yard play where the 49ers were in zone coverage, where Debo Samuel was essentially going straight. He saw Talanoa Hufanga, made his break to the right, and obviously his acceleration is faster than Hufanga's acceleration. Lance hit him in stride there. You saw a throw yesterday for a 25 to 30-yard gain. This is the way you get Debo Samuel back into the fold, back into stride, putting Debo Samuel in places where he's also comfortable, which will in reality make Trey Lance more comfortable to throw the ball to Debo Samuel because he's not necessarily as worried about Samuel not winning that route.
Yeah, so you mentioned Debo Samuel, and you could see the chemistry between Debo and Trey Lance. It isn't there yet where we look at Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance. It's phenomenal, right? Like, everyone sees the chemistry between Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk, and it's there. it's gonna take another week or so. It might be on Monday or Tuesday when they go back. It might be on Wednesday. Realistically, as long as it's there before week 1, that's all that really matters, right? Like Debo said today on NFL Network, right? They're asking him a question. He goes, by week 1, we will be hitting every single drum. That's all that matters. Once they get to roll bullets flying, everyone's on the same page. That's where the 49ers are getting back to. And Raj, from the Debo Samuel perspective, because I know some people have mentioned out there, they're thrown out there, Debo looks out of shape. His burst isn't there right now. What do you see? Because I see him in shape. I think he looks in great shape. I think just the chemistry isn't there yet. So when you run your routes normally, even on a deep pattern or whatever it could be, you tend to do something and the timing is there. I think the timing is what's off, not necessarily him being in shape.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think he has the same he did last year. He's just a thick guy. I think people are bothered by the fact that he's a thick guy and more slender as Debo. He's the wide back. If you're going to be that type of guy to run that physically, running outside and then taking all that contact, you need to be a little bit more thick. But honestly, he in no question is he out of shape. The guy looks so explosive. You can see route surgeon. I think his route running got better this year. I think that was a focus he even said that he put into his game this year. He's his burst. Like, he still has that. He's still Debo. I think 100% it's that timing, and he wished he would have got this done quicker so he could have had that chance to train with Trey, because he didn't want to get hurt. You can't go out there and train with Trey as much as he wanted to. He was in what he had to do, and this is one thing I spoke about in the offseason is I wish they would get it done, and that was the reason is so he can go out there and get that chemistry. That is really the biggest takeaway I see. Timing, he's off a few inches here, but today, like Rohan said, man, there was an after Debo. They did it yesterday. Strike. They're slowly building that chemistry, and like you said, they're going to be so dialed in. And then in 2 months, in 3 months, in 4 months, they're going to have a few days of training camp. I'm not worried. And again, to answer the question, is he out of shape? No. Debo, he's moving crisp. He's only going to get better. And you know what? If he is out of shape, he's got a whole month to get himself in shape. He will be ready by week 1. I have no worries. And then again, just kind of Kittle, he wasn't even in today. So those types of days when the veterans are off, it's hard to try to have these guys take some time off or they're going to get hurt. So going back to what you said, is all the starters are in there. So when people say, oh, Trey's, not looking good today, right? And in general, overall, the fact that he's out there getting all these reps and stacking days in a month when the season starts, I think this team's going to be great. And again, playing up against Ants is only going to make Trey better. I mean, when we go up against Chicago, I'm not even going to lie. I think Trey, Bosa, Fred Warner, Chakravarthi, Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Jimmy Ward, all the names. It's going to go up against these teams that don't have elite defenses. I mean, Trey's probably going to make them look a little silly.
And real quick, before we continue, good points, Raj, about, the defense being as good as it is and Debo Samuel. Like, there was one play that just told me in a way that Debo was back with his explosiveness. It was, was it Friday? I think it was Friday. He took a screen pass and he went 15 yards. He just weaved through the defense, burst through everybody. That play just told me it's not the explosiveness that's the issue. It's just getting back into the football groove, getting the rust off in a way. It'll require some time. I'm not going to say that it's going to happen like tomorrow. It's not going to happen on Wednesday. I think it'll require some time. And obviously, it mostly will require him to develop a better connection with Trey Lance. And so I think that should happen, especially in those 17 days that you have before this training, before the regular season starts, during those closed practices, when Shanahan might get a little more comfortable with his install, specifically the play action part of the install where you saw Debo Samuel featured a good amount, because that's where Debo Samuel will go on crossing routes a lot during those play action plays. And I think overall, especially once the offensive line kind of gets into it, once the running game kind of gets into the groove like we saw yesterday, it should open up the passing game, especially in play action, for players like Debo Samuel to work at what they do best, which is work after the catch. And before I continue, got to give a shout out to everybody's name who I just put out on the chat. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And yeah, this show is going to be great. I think we should get right now just straight into it today about Trey Lance's performance. Marco, what were your thoughts on certain throws, and what context can you give us from some of Trey Lance's throws based on his terrible 4 of 12 performance?
So right away, when I look at my notes, right? So he starts the day 3 for 3. First thing 49ers do is they get him in a rhythm, right? They run the ball 2 times in a row, and then they go play action from the gun. It was a play action to the play everyone's talking about, right? The Debo play, 25 yards. They're going to it's a zone, and then what I start noticing is Trey Lance starts to force things, right? Like he's trying to force these throws because with how good the defense was, there was, based on what I had counted, there was about 4 very tight coverage plays where he tries to throw it in, and you can either consider it a pass breakup, a drop, or like that's how close it was. Like they were suffocating these receivers. So when you look at what they're doing, you can't really say, okay, well, Trey Lance is struggling, because the receivers are absolutely struggling to create separation, and not all teams are going to have a defensive front like the 49ers, have linebackers like the 49ers, or have any corners like the 49ers. So that's one of the things I do want people to notice is the tight coverage. And then I do want to say, like, people are like, oh, well, he was 4 for 12. Well, the passes he made that were incompleted, they were on target. Like, they were there. Brandon Ayuk could have had some people could consider one of his passes to be a drop. I had Ray Mccloud with the drop. So that you can consider 2 plays as drops, realistically. So that puts him at 6 for 12 if they both catch the ball that they should have. Another one, he did have a play to tight end up the sideline. Yeah, he overthrew about 5 yards. I'd have to go into my notes to see exactly who it was. I believe it was Hudson or...
It was Fumagalli.
Okay,
it was a 30-yard
Fumagalli.
pass. He overthrew him by about 5 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, overthrew him, overshot it. He was wide open. He got to make that pass. But then the throw of the day for me was a play where he layered a throw to Brandon Ayuk that not many people are talking about, and I want this throw to be described beautifully. Okay, so there was a linebacker right under Brandon Ayuk. There was a corner and a safety over the top. He had to put this throw on the money. So what he had to do is put enough touch on it, give it enough air to land right into Brandon Ayuk's breadbasket. As soon as it was thrown, you hear people go, they thought the linebacker Oren Burks was going to intercept this pass, and it lands right into Brandon Ayuk's breadbasket. That throw for me was the throw of the day, and it just puts into perspective on what Lance is trying to do. He's trying to figure out what he can and can't do against top defenses, because later in the day they go to move the ball period, and he goes through the progressions left to right, checks it down to Tyler Kroft. So he's going through his progressions. He's doing what he's supposed to do. When you're going up against a great defense like the 49ers, you got to take these risks. You got to take these chances against a defense like this to see how good you actually are and see what you got to dial back. I do like what I saw from Trey Lance, and I'm not going to over exaggerate 4 for 12 being a bad day, because when you look at everything he did, the tight coverage, the nice passes he had, I think he had a solid. Like, I ended up texting Rohan. I was talking to my fiance on the way home, and I thought he had a solid day outside of his incompletion, like his completion percentage. If we look at the throws he made, there was a lot of throws on target that could have been catches, but it was just so tight coverage. It was good defense, and I respect what the defense is doing.
So to kind of go off of that with the whole 4 out of 12 day, I know people are going to rip on it. Going back to the whole chemistry thing is that's the issue, is he's just still building chemistry. He hasn't played with most of them. Him and Ayuk, obviously, they look absolutely dialed in. Like him and Ayuk, whenever he puts money in the bank, most likely. But the problem is not like that with everybody. So he's still learning, and it's his practice. This is where he should make mistakes. This is where he should go out there and take risks. Throwing these risky plays, it's going to come back and bite you. So I think Shanahan letting him go out there, because now it's Shanahan saying, look, I trust you. Take the risk. Learn from this. How do you get better? And I know I made a mistake yesterday. Jimmy Ward with the interception. He's going to talk to him afterwards. These guys are some of his locker mates. He's going to come back after practice and say, hey, look, Trey, like, they're telling him what he needs to work on. And he's probably going out there and saying, hey, try this. Let me try this. Practice, it's not a bad thing because he's going to learn what he needs to dial back. Learn what, check this in the memory bank and make sure we continue to do it. But this is practice where you're supposed to go out there, mistakes, and learn from it. So I'm not too worried about the 4 for 12. Going back to there were some drop passes. There was definitely some passes that's not on Trey. You have a drop pass. For whatever reason, we've seen multiple drop passes every day. Like Jennings has had today. Ayuk had drop passes, and then you got to realize that the tight end was not a big difference. When George Kittle's your tight end, it changes everything of how the defense has to prepare your installment. So that makes a big difference. And also the block is George. If he's not, then you put more pressure on the O-line, which again we mentioned the O-line was not having a good day with, and that put a lot of pressure on Trey. There was always a guy in his face. Hyder was getting consistent pressure. Javon say that this wasn't a bad day for Trey Lance. This was a phenomenal day for Javon Kinlaw. Kinlaw absolutely impressive today when he was in there. He was getting consistent pressure. He beat Aaron Banks. You should be happy about. It's a practice, and these are the victories that I see. Like, oh man, Trey struggled, whatever. He's a rookie he's in his first year as a quarterback starting. He's gonna have his Javon Kinlaw stepped in and made good plays. It was great to see. The fact that this D line was able to get Bosa in there was great to see because those are the victories that I took out of this. 4 for 12 to me. I really could care less about practice stats. I know that's the world we live in. It's 2022 stats. But to me, players are going to make mistakes. They're going to take risks in a play. And then when these practices are closed, Callahan's going to look at all this film. He's going to look at all, hone in on specific drills. He's going to have Debo and him probably working specifically. Him and Kittle are going to see. And again, by the end of the month, when the season starts, all this stuff will be ironed out. So 4 for 12, because again, it's just we're talking about practice, Marco.
You're talking about practice.
But real quick on the just overall today, one thing I've kind of tried to mention about the relationship between offensive line, quarterback, running game, it all functions together. When the offensive line, specifically the tackles, weren't there today, there was one change in our running game today that wasn't there yesterday, and that was the outside zone. We couldn't really win on the outside zone. You'd see maybe a maximum of a 3-yard gain on the outside zone on a majority of times. It'd be a 0, 1, 2, 3-yard gain. And despite running backs getting to the edge, the blocks just weren't there. I saw Tyrion Davis-Price burst with acceleration to the edge on times. Sometimes he had to cut it in, but still, if he would have cut it in, you wouldn't have gotten more than an extra yard because the blocks just weren't there on either the left or the right side, really. More so the left than the right because the 49ers did run more to the left than the right today. But that sets up longer plays on second and third downs and move the ball periods. And it also just sets up a more stagnant offense, putting more pressure on Trey Lance, who obviously has to complete harder passes with the full influx of a pass rush coming on him. And also the timing of blitzes from D'Amico Ryans also there as well.
Yeah, I want to go right before we do anything else. Like, what impressed you guys from the offense? Because obviously it wasn't just Trey Lance. There was some nice plays out there. There were some plays or players that we could mention. Who stood out to you guys? Because I definitely have a player that stood out to me, but I want you guys to go first.
And obviously today wasn't the best day for the offense. I think the play of the day, I think it was Brock Purdy throws him a pass. He kind of readjusted. It was nice. And I know people have kind of been saying that Danny Gray's had an up and down camp. Looks like a rookie. But there's times where he makes big plays, and I'm like, man, if he can consistently beat him off the line, he's going to be good. But he has struggled with creating separation today. I was impressed with that. That to me was was just a great day. Again, I will say that, the O-line, it was tough to kind of see them get what I saw from them. But I do respect that, they continue to give those reps at right guard and Aaron Banks. And those two guys have had solid camps. I don't think they had any bad data. Burford he continuously gets better. That's a guy I really hope that can continue to maybe steal the starting spot at right guard. But overall, again, O-line that they need to continue to stack those days and continue to improve and continue. Maybe it wasn't the best for them, but I was impressed that they just continued to stay up and keep grinding. Upset from what I saw. I know, again, the D-line, we keep talking about how the D-line was overpowered and held his own for the most part. Again, he's had some days where really is showcase he could be that starting left guard. So those are my takeaways from the offense.
Yeah, you brought up one receiver, and I do believe he's had an inconsistent camp, but I'll bring up another receiver, Ray Mccloud. He continues to be my guy. I said it yesterday, and I'm gonna say it again because it's just what I've seen and what really pops out to me. He's the second most consistent receiver on the field for the 49ers still. Debo Samuel obviously getting back in the fold now, but behind Brandon Ayuk in camp, it's been Ray Mccloud. Jawan Jennings continues to be extremely quiet, was covered extremely well on a route on an incompletion by Samuel Womack today, and he struggles not only to gain separation at times, but if he can't separate on top of having his drop issues that he's currently having over this, especially this week in one-on-ones and in 11-on-11s, Mccloud is slowly inching to seeing more volume. The only question right now that I'm thinking about, despite his good performances, Mccloud still is yet to be seen in significant packages with the first team offense. You see guys like Malik Turner even getting some run with the first team offense. So it is certain packages, but I think the 49ers, despite Mccloud's performances so far, are slowly easing him into that role. I still think Jennings is number 3. I think they still have an immense amount of confidence in him despite his slow training camp. Hence why Mccloud hasn't necessarily gotten as much run as he has. But against the backups, Mccloud has clearly shown he's the best receiver on the field when playing with the twos.
So I was going to mention Danny Gray and I was going to mention Ray Mccloud because those two guys had 2 deep catches. Ray Mccloud, it was from Nate Sudfeld. Nate Sudfeld dropped it in the bucket. Ray Mccloud had to make a nice, impressive catch. So those 2 guys did impress me today. But I was actually going to also wanted to mention 2 guys on the offensive line because we didn't have our starting tackles. But I didn't see Aaron Banks and Spencer Burford look like they were overmatched. On one occasion, I did see Banks absolutely stonewall Javon Kinlaw on a pass pro.
And real quick, Marco, that was actually also on a play where Lance extended the play with his legs to try and hit Fumagalli with a 5-yard out. So that means not only did Banks hold up initially, he held up throughout the entire rep, which was 7 seconds against of a guy.
Yeah, so he completely won that rep. And then later during practice, they run it was an outside zone to their side. He gets a pancake. So it's like, okay, that's the Aaron Banks that I want to see. And then I look on the other side because I was more focused on these interior guards because tackles aren't there, obviously. So I wanted to see what do they have. And Spencer Burford, that guy is Mr. Consistent. And yes, I'm gonna put it up because 49ers throwback put it out there. I did say he's gonna be a Pro Bowler, and I'm gonna double down today after again what I saw from him. He is the guy on the offensive line that I believe is so going to be so underappreciated by 49er fans. Everyone wanted the 49ers to take a player a lot higher to fix the right guard or the center position. The 49ers nailed this pick. This is probably one of their better picks that they've taken in a very long time. His athleticism, his size, his technique with his power, this kid is going to be a Pro Bowler. I met him earlier today at the team hotel where I was staying, and this dude's massive. He absolutely, and I was like, whoa, I was not expecting him to be that big because I've met a couple offensive linemen before, and I was like, whoa, he is Trent Jr. That's exactly what he looks like, Trent Jr. out there. Obviously, saying Trent Jr. is higher praise because Trent is obviously the best offensive lineman in the NFL. But when you watch him, the technique is always consistent, and you know what you're going to get from that player. So I do want to mention him and Aaron Banks as two guys I was very impressed by today.
Look, I want to add to that. Spencer Burford, I've got the pleasure of talking to him several times. I did a Phil the podcast with him that I worked with, and he took the time out of his day. It was the week before training, and the guy let us, do what we had to do. Super cool guy. We bought him to start the podcast with saying, "Hey, he didn't get your tacos from the Niners during draft night." This guy he kind of personifies what the Niners want. You know how they get a professional, just humble people. That's him. But when he's on the field, he steps out there. And you're right. Consistency with this guy. What I've noticed with him on one-on-ones, he's stonewalls. And I've watched him a lot on those one-on-ones, and he's tough to get by. And if he can kind of continue to develop, he did talk about when he trained with Trent Williams over the offseason because, Trent's from Texas. He gave me some really cool stories about that. And the guy's just really, really happy to be there. He was tackling college. Probably play guard this year because McGlinchey's out there on the tackle. But he goes, his future, hopefully, he can name as a tackle. But he goes, whatever I can do to help this team win, man, is what I want to do. And you're right. We got to give this guy his flowers because this man has started every rep at right guard rookie. Like that's kind of unheard of especially for Kyle Shanahan, and he doesn't always give these earning his respect with this O-line. And for any position he could have came on for him, because we did have question marks at the O-line, and he's making the most of it. I really like Spencer. And then kind of going back to what Rohan said, man, Ray Mccloud has been phenomenal. What I really like after the catch, he's like a young brother in training. He has the bold, slant guy, kind of like Debo. Give him a little break. Maybe he can do those reverse plays. Sweep out a little bit with him in practice. I've seen him do a jet sweep with him. So I'm really liking Ray. I do want to know how he said, but I think what he said is right about Jennings is they really kind of believe in him, but you're going to have to give Ray some chance in the first team.
So another thing I want to mention, right? So we're talking about the players on the offensive line and the players in general on the offense that impressed. So now let's take a little trip to defense, right? One thing I did notice, and this is something that impressed me, because when you have a defense this good and you're trying to get the defense to get them off guard, I guess is an easier way to say it, right? When you're trying to get the defense off guard and Kyle Shanahan throws a reverse at them, and everyone stays home, and everyone is there, and everyone makes a play for no gain. So I'm going to explain the play. So Trey Lance pitches to Elijah Mitchell, who is going out to the right side. Debo is lined up wide right. He comes all the way around. Mitchell pitches it to him, and we have like 3 defenders there. They're just waiting for him. Like, okay, you got nowhere to go, bro. Just give up, right? Like, literally, essentially what it was. That's how you know a defense is legit. When even in training camp, they aren't falling for any of this trickery stuff that Kyle's trying to get them on to get his offense to open up. Because that is a play for Kyle to literally get his offense to open up and say, hey, now you got to be honest. You got to play honest because I'm missing 2 tackles. I'm missing players on my offense. And that's a way to try to get a defense to be honest. And it's like, hey, what are you doing, Kyle? Like, we're just that good. Like, so what do you guys think about that play in particular? Because that play stood out to me throughout camp. Even though it was nothing major from the defense, it just shows how disciplined and how good they actually are.
Yeah, so I can take this first. When we talk about that play, 2 things that I noticed. First, great job by the defense, not only in staying disciplined, but also trusting each other, right? That's the one thing you don't necessarily see in training camp. Players will overcommit, because they don't necessarily trust. They haven't built the rapport with other players on that play. So you might see one guy try and dive, which then leaves an opening elsewhere, and people are trying to recoup, and that's where the extra yards come from. Instead, you saw everybody stay home, commit. The cornerback stayed there. The safeties closed in, but also just maintained like a level, like in a way a wall, so that there was no way to go. And then on top of that, second thing I noticed, yeah, the run blocking clearly on that play, at least. Like, you'd expect Trent Williams, right, on that play to immediately come out, and then you'd expect Aaron Banks to follow and get the interior guy. But because nobody could get the exterior guy, that entire play kind of fumbles because there was just a group of defensive linemen. I still think with Williams, you don't necessarily get a big game on that play just because the defense was so well positioned and so well disciplined on the play. But those were the two things I noticed: the lack of exterior run blocking on that play, and the defense remaining disciplined, which is a nice sign of cohesion and chemistry, really, from this first unit.
Yeah, no, I kind of fact the matter. I thought that play, when I see that, I was like, oh, little trickeration. Here comes Debo, met by the defender, and it goes nowhere. I was like, damn, this defense is dialed in, man. The fact that Shanahan calls it aware, I was like, okay, this defense, you know when the defense is feeling themselves when a trick play in training camp. The defense knows the plays. They are locked and loaded. But also, like you said, I was going to mention that if fans are out. So in a normal situation, Trent's there. Maybe even Kittle comes in and adds a little check would come in, and that wasn't in that that option there. So the O-line just good Trent Williams is, because he probably would have swung that open for a few more yards. But I did like the fact for the offense, because it was a way to get Debo again installed into this offense. They're still working in, and going back to what we talked about earlier. Debo not in shape or whatever. Kyle trying to figure out how they need to insert Debo into the offense and find ways to get him, showing you, hey, he's still going to be running all that time. We're still going to have these trick plays, and then maybe in a situation they run that reverse, and then he pulls back and throws a pass just like he did last year. The Jennings. So look, the wheels are still turning, and the Wizards still at work. So I'm not worried it didn't go far, because it's nice. I was like, okay, they still got some big plays cooking up for Debo, and just the fact that not just running intermediate routes and whatever with him. They again, Rohan talked about it earlier. We saw this today. We've seen him do some intermediate plays. We've seen him do some deep routes. So they're really trying to. The biggest takeaway was, they're really working Debo in this offense, and I like what I'm seeing out of it.
Go ahead, Ron.
Oh, I had spoken about the Debo thing. You can go ahead. What do you think?
I think it's one of those ones where it just shows how great a defense is when you're that locked in. And we're going to Debo, right? Because we see how that's kind of how Kyle's bringing Debo along. Hey, I'm not going to rush you in. I know how good you are. I don't need to put you in and let you run all these 100 routes that you're going to be running this year. Because, one, we got to get you through camp, right? You haven't really been practicing. The injury could potentially be there. The way I see it in camp is everyone sees everything differently, right? My biggest thing was, it's interesting to see Kyle Shanahan not have his entire roster out there on a big day like Dwight Clark Day, where fans are going to be there, right? Not only fans, NFL Network is there, right? So to me, that just shows how confident Kyle Shanahan is in Trey Lance. Like, I don't care if he has the worst day of camp. Let them go talk. Let these fans over exaggerate. I know what I have in my quarterback. I know what I have. And to me, that was something I was thinking about. And I'm very impressed on a head coach doing that to his young quarterback. Because not only does it throw him in the fire, like, hey, go sink or swim, kid, right? In front of NFL Network and in front of more fans than were there yesterday because of Dwight Clark Day. There were a little bit more fans today. And a lot of fans were like, wow, I had someone sitting behind me. Man, I'm kind of worried about Trey Lance. Says that to his son, and I kind of wanted to chuckle, right? Because this is literally what Kyle Shanahan is doing for Trey Lance to get him ready. What do you guys think about that? Is that a way Kyle Shanahan's like, hey, we're going to get you ready this way?
I can go first. To me, in my opinion, it is maybe a part of that, but also it's honestly Kyle Shanahan just showcasing he doesn't care. Send all your guys. Send your main honcho. Send NFL Network. Send Ian Rappaport. Send Tom Pelissero. He do not care. Like it's funny because I mean I expected in a way a ramp down from yesterday, given how yesterday involved move the ball for a lot. Also the 2-minute drill. You saw the same kind of pattern last week when the 49ers ran a 68 play day and then ramped it down completely the next day. And overall, I didn't expect like these many players not to play, but you had both of your starting tackles out. You had your starting top tight end out. You had Nick Bosa out. You had Samson Ebukam out. And then you had your 2 starting linebackers out. Several key contributors were and not to mention Emmanuel Mosley as well out. Several key contributors out. I think it in a way showcased 2 things. One, like I said, Kyle Shanahan do not care about your business. And 2, he wanted to get the younger guys kind of some reps, right? This is a good day after a long day. The younger guys haven't played as much. You get them some meaningful reps because Diamaro Lenore got his first day. What do you call it? At slot cornerback. Today, the reason that we saw some of these interceptions is because some of those younger guys finally got some more play and were able to showcase their talents. Marcelino McCrary Ball got an interception working with the second team. And remember, because we're starting move the ball period, because we're starting this, the third team offense and defense is not out there as much anymore. Sometimes they'll rotate specifically between the first and the second team. By my count, Brock Purdy had 4 throws today. Sudfeld had 8 and Lance had 12. So 20 of the 24 throws were with the first and second team offense, which means you want players, the younger guys who don't necessarily see as much action with those 2 teams, to see some run. And so that was an added bonus today, despite obviously some of the key players missing.
Yeah, I agree with Rohan. Actually, that was kind of my take. He doesn't care about the media. He's told us. He literally strung the media across for 2 quarterback issues. The Debo, they know what's going on. They care less about the media. The media instigate and speculate and do what they got to do. Kyle Shanahan, he's gonna run his team the way he wants to run. But so what? Yesterday they had a 2-hour practice. It was one of the most intense practices. These players deserve some days off, some rest period. And I respect Kyle Shanahan for the fact that he 2 rest days, like Kittle, Trent Williams, Bosa. They're going to get extra days off, and they need that because having this maintenance time right now, early in a training camp session for guys like get Kittle and practice, like yeah, cool, it's for the fans. They want to see these players out there. But if you haven't been in training camp, you've been here all week, right? We have, right? So Kyle doesn't care about that. These players need. That's what he did. He's letting his super veterans get those days off, and it's going to pay off in the end of the season. The other key is a lot of these guys are on a roster bubble. They need more reps. They need time. Who's going to make this roster? You need to give some of these younger guys a chance. You need to have Sam Womack in because there's roster camp battles that are going on, and if they wait till preseason, we'll tape out, in a training camp, and they need it. George Kittle doesn't need the reps, nor needs the reps more than George Kittle. Things like that. So I think it was good for the team. Network wants to be there, then so be it. But we're still going to go about practice the way we're going to go about first day. It's day 10, so I don't think Kyle Shanahan cares about that. He cares about. It's good to see some guys that didn't get much, scratch, to get more opportunities today. I think it was, again, it's a combination of days. Every day is a different day. Yesterday was them, so I'm sure some of those players needed that time off. And respect Kyle Shanahan for letting veterans get that time off because that's going to come back towards the end of the season and really help them out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you guys, right? Those maintenance days, you're hoping those pay off in the playoffs, right? When they have less wear and tear on their body because you allow them to take days off. What are your guys' expectations? Well, realistically, because you guys have both been there every day. throughout training camp. I've been there 2 days. What are your expectations for the 49ers, whether it's offense, defense, whatever way you guys want to take it, record-wise or whatever? What are your guys' expectations for the 49ers that the fan base should know?
Yeah. First, temper your expectations of how. Oh, my bad. But temper your expectations of how the offense might roll initially. What do I mean by that? You might not see deep shot after deep shot after deep shot. I think it's important for Kyle Shanahan to and Trey Lance to understand that you take what the defense gives you. So you might see a lot more checkdowns because Trey Lance might try and hone that algorithm in a way in early on as the offense moves. Now, does that mean I believe the offense is going to stall? No. Why? Because the 49ers have a run game, which we've seen 2 days in a row, not except for today. The last 2 days was able to move successfully when the starters were out there. So that's something that I'm excited to see. I think you're going to see a run heavy attack to begin the season with the occasional deep shot for sure, because that is one of Trey Lance's, like, it's a part of his arsenal and it helps stretch the field out, but also a good amount of play action plays where you get your quarterback in comfortable situations where he's on the move and not necessarily having to face as much pressure, as well as looking for shorter throws so that not too much is on his plate while you let the run game elevate it. I'll just point to one part of the play calling. So both days in move the ball periods, today and yesterday, Kyle Shanahan started the first team offense with an interesting drive. He didn't run the ball to start. Instead, today he threw the check down to Tyler Kroft. Yesterday, he had Lance drop back and he was sacked. Then they ran the ball on second down, on second and long, that is, to set up third down. Yesterday, third and long. Today, third and short. But then, so both of the first drives stalled. But then on the second drive, what did he do? He started pounding the rock. And so to me, I think it's just him seeing what works and what doesn't work. But I think that second one, the latter drive, is what you're going to see a good amount because when it works, you don't go away from it. And so I think you're going to see a good amount of running the ball, especially with this offense that has different running backs, and this offense can tailor to all three needs, meaning Trey Sermon, he's not as much of a power back. He's exhibited power, but he's more of a guy who can be a one-cut back and run downfield with a little more speed. Davis Price has good acceleration, but also can lay the boom, and he's got some good power. We've seen it over the last 2 days. He started to really come along. And then Elijah Mitchell is the clear-cut running back one, a combination of both. He's 220 pounds, but he's the fastest running back on the team. The ability to get to the edge, the ability to rush in the middle. I think this trio of running backs really, obviously running back 4 is a question, but this trio of running backs is going to be able to get the ball moving for the 49ers where they can easily and slowly implement more and more of the passing game.
Yeah, hit the nail right on the head. It's Kyle Shanahan's offense, and for as long as I've known Kyle Shanahan, it was predicated on the run. You run establishes everything. And if Mike McGlinchey on the anchors and everybody else, learning from them, this run game is going to be elite. He'll get his opportunities to throw deep and run those little, RPO plays. I'm sure Kyle will open up the playbook. But I know they're going to, most likely as the season starts, and that's okay because, like you said, we saw it the other day in that 2-minute drill. I mean, it was very efficient. I don't see him throwing a lot of checkdowns during training camp, but today there was more. And it tells once they kind of roll things out and the season goes on, it's going to be that Kyle Shanahan offense. But the one thing with Trey is I really have noticed one thing about him is he really knows how to go through his progression. I know first read, check down. He wants to get that ball out quick. Trey is so good at reading those. He takes those deep progressions. Again, maybe it's because what we were talking about earlier, it's training camp and you want to put those wrists, but he's so good at making those progressions. You can just see his head. He's like, boom, boom, boom. He's really good. And as it gets better, as the game slows down and he gets a little bit more calm and more calm every day, and that stuff's just going to improve. And it's really nice to see a quarterback that can actually, oh wow, this guy's open. And as he gets that chemistry with these guys together, once him and Debo get on, he's going to be able to check, oh, I know Kittle's going to be there on this play because he knows the route, he knows the play. And it feel early in the season, we won't see that as much. But as he gets comfortable, those kind of feel that this play action game is going to be nice with those little deep passes early, but of this the running attack we have, because Elijah Mitchell is having a hell of a camp. People talk about the season, and I know he is just the way based off this camp, but people are not talking about Elijah Mitchell enough. Just like Brandon Ayuk, Trey Sermon, second year right now, looks like he's locked and formed his body. He looks stronger. He looks quicker on his cuts. And TDP, man, we and there's always a TDP highlight. I was surprised today there wasn't, like you said, like this man, he'll head down. He's going to run people over like a truck, and it's going to be fun. You run behind Trent Williams, you should get 5 yards, honestly, and that's only going to do good for Trey. That is as good as if they're as good advertised in the way we're seeing them in training camp, are in great field position, and that's only going to make it easier for him too. You know, he's going to be more confident starting. And honestly, I think he's in a good setup. We've talked about this before. Out of all the younger quarterbacks, he's one of the best situations with all the talent around him. But honestly, yeah, you're right. This is going to be the key to it all. As long as they can block and hold their hold their blocks about that. But what do you think, Marco?
So I think obviously it's a Kyle Shanahan offense. It's not going to be one of those air raid offense, or they're not going to be pushing the ball down the field constantly. Kyle Shanahan's offense is intermediate to short. Like that's what Kyle likes. He will hit you in that 20 to 15 to 20 yard range. He'll pick you apart there. But don't get me wrong, we're going to see a lot of deep shots from Trey Lance eventually in this offense. Trey Lance likes to do that, and Kyle Shanahan is willing to adjust his scheme, not necessarily his scheme, but the way he calls plays to allow his young quarterback to take those shots. I do think the 49ers run game is going to be one of the best in the NFL based off what I've seen within in 2 days. What I want the fans to know is, like Rohan said, patience. And I'm not saying patience for Trey Lance. Patience for the entire team, right? Because this defense is coming in. It's going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. The run game's coming in. It should be a top defense. But be patient, because what the 49ers plan on doing is making a long run. They don't plan on doing everything week one, right? They're not gonna, for example, Kyle Shanahan is not gonna come out and run everything in his arsenal week one. That's not Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan likes to build on what he did in week one to week two. Then eventually, week 18, Kyle Shanahan's running stuff that is very similar to week one, but adding a twist to it because there's so much film. So be patient, because the final product will be week 18, will be in the playoffs. It's not going to be week one when Trey Lance runs onto the field against the Chicago Bears. That's what I want everyone to understand. Trey Lance is not going to come out and throw for 400 to 500 yards week one and week two. That's not going to happen. What's going to end up happening is Kyle Shanahan's going to allow him to throw roughly about 25 times. He'll probably be 17 for 25, 18 for 25 in that range. We're going to see a lot of Brandon Ayuk over the middle, Debo over the middle, George Kittle. That's what we're going to see. That's the offense we're going to see. And the thing is, the reason why Kyle Shanahan drafted Trey Lance was to eventually attack deep, and that is what Trey Lance provides. He provides the opportunity to take it over the top. So I think that's what we're going to see throughout the season, is allowing Trey Lance to just grow into his own. But from what I've seen in 2 days, I'm excited, because it looks like a playoff team, and a playoff team that's going to go deep into the playoffs. So that is something the 49ers fans should expect.
Yeah, a big exciting season. You're right. I've seen just Trey. I mean, we're all excited about Trey, but this whole team from top to bottom. I mean, look at the names on the roster. It's just loaded with talent. But what do you think, Rohan?
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I think honestly, I'll just go back to this inflection point, because it's important to note. Kyle Shanahan talked about this with Tim Kawakami on that podcast. You don't need Trey Lance to do everything for your offense when he comes in. What happened during 2019? Jimmy Garoppolo, coming off the ACL tear, was getting reacclimated into the offense. The 49ers were also trying to just figure out what exactly his skill set was. So when the 49ers went 8-1 in the first 9 weeks, Jimmy Garoppolo had 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 229 passing yards a game. All three of those numbers aren't nearly elite, right? Under 2 touchdown passes a game, uh, above an interception a game, or not above, nearly an interception a game, and 229 passing yards. And yet the 49ers went 8-1. Why? Because they build the foundation of their team on a strong defense and a strong running game. And I don't think that that's changed this year. I think both the defense and the running game can be comparable to that year. And given the fact that you have strong play, at least at the tackles, and also it seems like some of your interior offensive linemen project better as run blockers, you might see a better run game this year than you might expect from the offensive line. And so I think those two are going to be the foundation for the offense. And I think, or at least the run game is going to be the foundation for the offense, while the defense is going to be able to kind of shoulder this team to victories. And remember, they're facing a tough schedule. Nobody's saying they're going to go 17-0, 14-3, but at least the foundation of the team has been strong. And when you see that Trey Lance struggles, well, there's a reason he's struggling. It's because there's a really damn good defense on the other side of the field. So, in a way, there's some positive to take out of every practice, although you obviously got to take both sides. And with that said, I think we can get to some of these questions here because there was an interesting one. I know Marco tweeted out about one of these. Marco, what did you see about Trey Sermon returning kicks?
So I did tweet it out. So it looked like Trey Sermon was returning kicks. Not, I don't think it was punts. So I put punts/kicks, because when you're kind of looking at it, like he's doing a drill before practice where he's facing the opposite way when he goes and he has to find it, and then right after that it went straight to like their punt coverage unit. So he wasn't on their punt coverage unit when they had Brandon Ayuk and Ray Mccloud fielding these. So it was actually. So it makes me actually think that was actually kick returns. So he was returning kicks, or he was actually practicing that. I actually like the idea. Do you guys remember when the 49ers had Carlos Hyde returning kicks for a little while? I think Trey Sermon provides a burst. He knows how to see holes and stuff. But I think the kick returner is going to either be Ray Mccloud or a running back. And I think it's going to be Ray Mccloud because of that extra speed and that juice he has. The reason why he brought him over here was to return kicks and punts. So I think he'll end up being there. But it is nice to see the 49ers trusting a young running back to get those extra reps and those something extra, right? When you're doing good, feed your players something extra. Hey, you know what? You've been killing camp recently. How about you return some kicks? I mean, you might need to do that in the regular season. And if Ray Mccloud ain't doing well, you might be put there to get some extra run.
No, I think that these guys more chances and opportunities. It's only going to make them more confident. And you're right. If someone struggles in camp, let me give you a shot, and then maybe he can have some big plays there. And I think that's good for Sermon. We all know the document. It's all documented. He had injuries. He's kind of struggling in camp. Burford, Kyle Shanahan, doghouse. So I feel that's good for Trey. Getting some as these guys. Whatever they can do to help this team win, and at the end of the day, is going to go a long way. If they play on the line, if they got a block, I think the end result, if it's a championship, it's good for Trey Sermon that he's getting this opportunity.
So going to the next question, we have here. Yo, was out running errands. Did J-Dub throw a shot at the Rams today? So Jimmy Ward was actually on NFL Network with Tom Pelissero and Maurice Jones-Drew, right? They pretty much asked Debo Samuel the same question. Debo took the high road. He was like, you know what? Like, when the pads come on, we'll talk. Like we talk with our pads. Jimmy Ward goes on and he's like, hey, nah, there's no love between us. Like, no love. He pretty much did the same thing Aaron Donald did, which is interesting. I want to know your guys' perspective. Do you guys like when players talk that talk, or do you prefer a player like Debo Samuel? Like, nah, the way we're gonna roll is when we have our pads on. That's when we'll start talking to these guys, because a lot of times players will get into this back and forth through like the media. What do you guys think when it comes to that?
I mean, if it's not a distraction, I don't really mind if players talk that talk. I obviously don't mind if players take the high road as well, like Debo Samuel, because if you're able to back it up like Debo Samuel has on the field with his play, like I think it just matches both personalities, right? In a way. And I think both personalities have been fine. Like Jimmy Ward is just an electric player. He'll always talk that talk, and 49er fans appreciate that from him. But the 49er fans also appreciate how Debo Samuel puts it on the field, plays physical, because every single time you talk about him in the Rams, what do you remember? Him trucking Jalen Ramsey on that play going out of bounds. So, like, I think it's both sides are fine. It really, like, it's two different personalities. And as long as it doesn't really become a distraction and you back it up, then yeah, you can talk that talk.
Yeah, I agree with Rohan. I'm cool with either way, as long as it doesn't become just disrespectful. We all know that the Rams and the Niners is a huge rivalry. It's absolutely one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL. Two of the top teams in the NFC. And because he knows that he dominates the Rams. Every time he plays them, he has a career single time highlight reel game. And I'm sure he's mad about that NFC Championship. He gets the ball in the fourth quarter. So I'm sure it kind of lingers in him. He doesn't have to say anything. And that's just Jimmy Ward. If he didn't say anything like that today, I would have thought something's wrong with him, because in his interviews, he's very, boisterous. He always brings that trash talk, and that's Jimmy. Anything bad? He said, I tried to shake their hand during the times that we beat them when they won. So what's up with that? He goes, I'm going to bring it. So at the end of the day, Jimmy Ward, he's just trying to in a competition. At the end of the day, win or lose, but you guys didn't respect us. I don't think he said anything wrong, and I respect Jimmy for always bringing the talk, man. This season, when he goes live on Instagram, it's like must-see TV.
Go ahead, Rohan.
My bad. But overall, I think, Jimmy Ward, he can talk that talk because Aaron Donald, first of all, he was the one who talked that talk originally. Said we do not like the 49ers. So it's funny, Jimmy Ward retaliates in a wit. And that's, it's a good storyline. I mean, there's the rivalry there. No big deal. But 49ers, Rams, week 4, week 8, that's when the pads come on. That's when you'll see who really can back up their talk. And to finish today's episode, we've got one last question. How does Tyrion Davis-Price look so far? I know me and Marco saw this today. Raj, you've also been seeing it with me all camp. What do you think, Marco?
I think TDP looks very good when he's decisive. When he's running and he's decisive, he knows what he wants to do. His burst is there. He finishes strong, finished all his runs very strong. But when he wants to be a college like back, and I'm gonna always throw it to college like back, high school like back kind of player, and dancing in the backfield or trying to dance with these linebackers and D linemen, that's not his style. Know what you want to hit, find that hole, explode, and when he does that, it's like, whoa, you see how fast he actually is. That 230-pound back actually can move. And that's something I did notice right away. It was like when he decides to, it's kind of similar to last year, right? Trey Sermon. When Trey Sermon hit the hole how he wanted to, when he saw it the right way, he looked good. But when he wanted to dance in the backfield, he didn't look good. Same thing with TDP. He doesn't have the speed to dance, but he has the speed to find that hole, explode, and then when he does that, he's beautiful.
When he's decisive, we talked about this yesterday. When he's decisive, he's such a good runner, but he dances and shimmies, and he's not lined up. That's where he's in trouble. But the thing more impressive how fast he is to the outside. I didn't expect him to be that explosive to the outside. Like, physical runner, he's gonna truck you. He's gonna put his head down, but he can hit those edges pretty quick. I was a little bit fast on that, so I like what I seen out of TDP. I'm excited about this guy. He's had a phenomenal camp. What do you?
Yeah, TDP is he had a slow start. I'll be honest, at least to me. And that's where Marco brings up the point of decisiveness. Sometimes TDP was not as decisive, not trying to find the hole, and not trusting his talent enough. When, like, we see the acceleration, we see the burst. At some times, you hope that, like, there's a good time to be confident in your abilities, but there's also a good time as a running back to be taken to take what's given to you. Today there was a rep where TDP was trying to curl around the edge. Should have probably cut it inside. Like it was an outside zone. Should have probably cut it inside rather than going all the way to the edge. Got stopped before going to the edge. He cuts it inside. He probably gets 2 yards, and that's just the nature of the NFL. Don't be overconfident in your abilities, although they do play a huge role. But also take what's given to you and move from there, because then that's the best way to be most efficient, because you need to be a downfield runner. You can't be overconfident in your abilities, run horizontally, because you'll get stuck for a loss of yards, 0 yards, maybe only 1 yard, that type of thing. But TDP so far, last couple of days has really turned it on. And it's nice because when there's a hole, the acceleration at LSU, he didn't really have many holes against alongside like a subpar offensive line, and so now with a real good offensive line, you've seen a couple of times where he's able to break away into the second level. He's not that guy with that, like, he has good burst and good acceleration, but he's not that guy that's going to break away for an 80-yard gain. Still, that doesn't matter. If you can get those 7-8 yard gains and just be able to move the change that way, that's huge.
So that's it for today's episode. I do want to thank you, Raj, for coming on, talking 49ers with us. Where can everyone?
Yeah, of course. You can find me RSF49ers on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, there. But I appreciate you guys for having me. It was fun. Gotta do it again. It's always good talking Niners.
And that's it for today's episode. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the 49ers Red Zone podcast. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Rohan's podcast, YouTube. Make sure you guys follow everyone on Twitter. You make sure you guys go do that right after you guys log on.